What's up? This is Wednesday. It is Wednesday, right? And we are getting close to the end of the quarter, so I'm going to talk about that and then a little bit of preview of next quarter. Link today for what you're on right now, and then this doc that I want to use as an example of a few things. So this doc is a couple years old, but it's still good. There was a big Twitter thread by a Pixar artist who said, here are some of our rules, like our key guidelines. And they're nice and classic. They're nice and open-ended, and you can apply them to any type of story. Of course, Pixar is well known for their revision process. They work on stories for a long time, many years, because it takes so long to do the animation. At least it did at first. Now I'm sure they have better systems set up, but it took so long to make, Toy Story or Monsters Inc. or something that they had a long time to write the story, rewrite it, change it, improve it, think of something better, keep going through the process. And by the end, it was something great. Now, I don't know about the most recent Pixar. Haven't seen most of the new movies. But, I mean, if you're talking about Toy Story, Up, WALL-E, it's all wonderful. So, here are some of these rules, and I think they can be a great wrap-up, like a great final thing for the quarter, because they're all big stuff, and what we've been talking about this quarter is big stuff. We've not talked about like how to write a sentence that describes a certain thing or how to choose words that have alliteration. We're going to do that next quarter. We're going to do some examples of those and read some poems and things like that, but this time it's all been the structure. So if you need a boost, if you need a little bit of inspiration when you're doing your CQA and you're thinking about how you could improve your story, what you could plan for, like if there was a future, if you were going to do a fourth draft, what would you do? Something like that. Or if you want to hand this to your partner when you do the reader part of it, you can give them something to keep in mind. It doesn't mean you have to check through all 22 of these and like give yourself a grade. It just means here's some inspirational tips. Okay, so I'm going to pick a few that I think are important. On my video preview of the stream, it's frozen. I don't know if the real thing is frozen, but hopefully you can at least hear the audio. And this stuff is on screen, so I won't scroll. 1, you admire a character for trying more than for their successes. So if you have a character who walks in, does a tiny bit, and wins, gets everything they wanted, that's not very interesting, okay? If you have a character who comes in, tries really hard, has to give up so much and put their whole soul into something and fail, that's wonderful. That's where we, care. And it almost doesn't matter how it turns out. If they try really hard and win, or if they try really hard and lose, it's kind of the same feeling to the audience. If you have a character who's just not bothered and not, there's no competition for them, then not very interesting, okay? So if you have a character who really gets beat up, tries hard, gets back up, that's like the classic thing in a movie, is that the main character probably isn't going to win a fight, but they get back up when the bad guy's like, no, stay down, and then the hero gets back up again. That's what we care about, even if they don't win the fight. Next, I want to skip to number 4, and this is sort of a less technical version of all these things we've been talking about with your character motivation, You describe what they want, and then they have a problem. Once upon a time, there was blank. Every day, blank. One day, because of that, because of that, until finally, Okay, so once upon a time, there was something, and here's how it went. If you think of, for example, the story Stockings. We read Stockings by Tim O'Brien. It's about a guy who has this routine. He has this thing that's a lucky charm, and it's weird, and it's very causes his teammates to make fun of him. But he has his thing. But one day something changes, and we don't know if he's going to stick with it anymore. And he makes some decisions, and finally we see how he ends up. Okay, we see what he's made of. We see how he responded to the challenge. If your story is missing one of these parts, it's probably not a full story yet. It's probably, an anecdote or a beginning or just something that doesn't quite come around fully. So think about these. And since they are written in a very casual way, it might be a little bit of a different angle instead of thinking of it in terms of like, do I have motivation? Do I have conflict? Some of those sound a little technical sometimes. Okay. Next, I'm going to look at number 6. And this is a classic one. What is your character good at and comfortable with? Give them the opposite. Okay, throw the polar opposite at them, challenge them. For example, if you've got a character who is strong, they're a fighter, and they can beat up anybody, you don't just want to give them a fight. Okay? You want to give them a puzzle or an emotional challenge or whatever. And of course, you can mix in a fight. But, for example, you have a story about Thor, you're probably going to take away his hammer, right? That's just, how could you not, right? That's just the classic thing. In mythology, there's a story about, Loki took Thor's hammer. And Loki gave it to this giant. I'm trying to remember the name. And this giant was a king in Jotunheim, the land of the giants. And they absolutely could not get in through the front door. Thor and all his buddies were not enough to come like straight at the giant's main fortress, so they had to use some tricks. They had to use a little bit of a subterfuge, and what they ended up doing was like, they said, oh, we're going to arrange a marriage between this giant and one of our Aesir goddesses, and Thor put on a dress and he put on a veil and went in disguise in this wedding party. And of course it's funny because Thor is the big manly man and they've made him put on a dress, but it's also sort of making him grow, right? It's making him use things that he shouldn't use normally, like patience and deception, where normally Thor is like, can I just hit him in the head? It made him different. So you want to take whatever your character has and make them learn another way. If they're a fighter, well, you probably don't give them a fight, at least not at first. If they are a scientist, well, maybe you do give them a fight, because maybe that is a challenge for them, You got to figure out what is your person good at, and then give them the opposite. Or rearrange the order of it. You think, what am I going to give this character? I already know I want to do a fight, therefore I'm going to start with a guy who's not a fighter. Or I already know I want to make it a romance. Well, then I'm going to start with somebody who's bad at romance, who doesn't know how to talk to people, who doesn't know how to, go on a date or whatever the situation is. If you start with the best lover and you give them romance, well, it's not special for them. Or if you start with the best fighter and you give them a fight, well, it's not special. So you want to give them the thing that is special, is new, and so on. Okay, now I'm going to scroll down one more time. Not sure if this is showing on screen. It's a little frozen in my preview, but that's okay. I'm going to go to number 19. Number 19 says, coincidences to get characters into trouble are great. Coincidences to get them out of it are cheating. Okay, the whole point of a story is conflict. If you want to give them more conflict, do it. If you want to take away, that's probably not great. So if you go walk down the street and your character gets hit by a bus, that might make the story better. I'm not saying you should do that, but it might be fun. Or if they're walking down the street and it starts raining, and then your character's beautiful new clothes just got messed up, that might make the story better because it gives them more of a hard time. It makes them dig deeper to overcome the struggle. But if your character's walking down the street and they need money and they just find money on the ground, well, that just took away the conflict. That just took away the struggle. That just took away all the cool stuff that makes a story a story. And you can make it interesting, and you can make it a be careful what you wish for thing, or maybe they find money and then the gangsters who drop that money come after them or whatever. But if you just make nice things happen for no reason, it's probably going to make the story less fun as opposed to more fun. Okay, so that's it. I don't want to focus on every single one because I don't want you to focus on every single one. I don't want you to treat this like a checklist where you have to nail down every little thing. However, I would definitely recommend you look at it and you might see, oh, that's an interesting way to put it. That's an interesting idea. A lot of them are just saying, hey, do the opposite of what you thought. You know, look at it a different way. Write the ending first. Be more mean to the character instead of nicer. Things like that. That might shake you out of a writer's block. If you're stuck and you're like, I don't know what to do, well, then these will probably help. Or if you give it to a reader, they might have an idea of things to observe. So that's that. I have another assignment ready that we're going to do fourth quarter, but I'm not going to post it now because I don't want to confuse things. I don't want to have a bunch of different posts all at once. What we're going to do quarter four, if you look, you see I got you see our little thing ready to go here. I'm going to show you some fight scenes from movies. And the reason I'm going to do fight scenes is because they've got like sounds. They got clashing swords and people falling down stairs and gunshots. And they're all like full of little things. Okay. And so we're going to get into those descriptions of little things. I'm going to ask you to describe the sound, the action, the verbs, you know, all the good stuff. This is going to be one way we introduce ourselves to the topic for next quarter, which is word choice, diction, onomatopoeia, alliteration, some of the more poetic side of writing, and less of the big story, plot motivation stuff. Of course, we'll still do both. Anyway, I'm not going to post that now. Maybe Friday, maybe Monday. Thanks for listening. I do have some viewers here. I don't know how it went on the YouTube connection. Maybe it froze for a while. It did in my preview at least. And I'll continue to check the stuff that's been turned in, to keep grading. Remember, the grades are not due this Friday. I'll try to have them done, but I probably won't. As long as you turn it in by this Friday, we got lots of time afterwards next week. Thanks. Okay, that's that.